So if you've been following the small habits, tiny habits, atomic habits, all those habits, 1% habits, which is what I call them, theory for a while, then you've probably come across the idea that a tiny change makes a massive difference in your life. And usually they use the tiny change itself to explain what they mean. Like, if you change 1 degree on a airplane flight from Los Angeles to New York, you end up in, Seattle or something. It's way off course, essentially, is what they're saying. Or if you save $1 a day, then, in 40 years, without any effort, really, you'll be a millionaire. Or if you read 1 page a day, then in a year you'll have read 3 or 4 books, or and the knowledge that you got was equivalent to a college degree or something, right? The idea is that one small change will make a great difference in your life, using the example of the thing itself. But that's maybe true. In some cases it might be true. Reading a page a day in a book is a great idea. You're probably not going to get a college education from it, but just it's good to have some new ideas, and it will make a change in your life. And saving a bit of money every day is also a good idea, right? So these are good habits to have. But the truth is that these tiny habits aren't the real thing that's going to change you. It's the knock-on effects of the tiny habits that's going to change you. Let me explain what I mean. So, in the great book, The Power of Habit, they start out by talking about a woman who decided she was going to quit smoking. It was a pivotal point in her life. Decided she was going to quit smoking. And 2 years later or so, maybe 3 years later, I don't know exactly what it was, she was a super fit, healthy, outgoing young woman because she quit smoking. Well, not true. The quitting the smoking was the keystone habit she needed. She had to work through the discipline of not smoking, and once she got that discipline, then she used that discipline for all sorts of different things. So it was the discipline that was the keystone habit. When we're talking about keystone habits, anything can be a keystone habit. And it's just basically the start of a bunch of knock-on effects of different habits. I'll talk about what a knock-on effect is. Okay, so let's say, for example, you're going to save $1 a day. So, yeah, the idea is eventually you'll become a millionaire, right? If you continue to save $1 a day and invest it, you'll be a millionaire. Sure, maybe in 40 years, maybe you don't want to wait that long. But just because you're saving $1 a day, what happens? Well, you get more discipline. You're more disciplined because you actually have to put that dollar away every day, right? After a month or two, you have to be disciplined to do it, especially after there's some money in there, right? So not only do you have to have discipline, but you also have to have self-control not to spend the money once it starts to becoming an amount of money, right? A serious amount. Like in a year, you got $365. Not a lot of money really when you think about investing, but it could be a nice night out for you and the wife, or you could spend it on something you've been wanting for a while. Self-discipline, right? You learn self-discipline because you have money, you don't want to spend it. You don't spend it, that's self-discipline. Or you also learn consistency, right? Every day, doing something that you don't really want to do every day. Consistent. You learn that. So that's some of the knock-on effects of saving $1 a day. Well, how about what are the knock-on effects of the knock-on effects? Well, let's just talk about having some discipline. So now you have discipline because you're saving $1 a day, right? What do you do with that discipline? Well, doesn't just include that $1 a day. It also includes things like maybe getting to bed earlier so you can be well rested. You could, with that discipline, you can learn some things that you didn't know before and upgrade your skills. You know, discipline is a great thing. You can be more healthy because you're disciplined to eat properly and do some workouts and be fit and that type of thing. Discipline. That's just one of the three we talked about, and we only talked about three things that are knock-on effects of saving $1 a day. See, knock-on effects of knock-on effects of knock-on effects will eventually develop to the point where you're unstoppable. Unless, because unfortunately, knock-on effects for poor habits are also quite prevalent, right? So you have a habit of having a drink at night. Okay, that's fine. Lots of people do that. No big deal. You know, you're relaxed, you're whatever, you have a drink. Well, maybe you decide you end up sort of leaning in towards having an extra drink. Now that you have an extra drink, so what are the knock-on effects of not only having one drink, but having two? Well, suddenly you're sleeping less. It's because it's known that if you drink just before bed, or a few hours before bed, your sleep is poorer, so you don't get as good sleep. You also have less self-discipline because you know you probably shouldn't have another drink, but you do anyway. So you have less self-discipline. And then you have some negative health consequences because you're, drinking, and your health is cardiovascular problems, liver problems, all those different things. So having an extra drink, those are the knock-on effects of having an extra drink. But what are the knock-on effects of the knock-on effects? Well, let's just talk about having poor sleep. So you get worse sleep. So now you have a degraded mental ability during the day. You have less energy. You have less opportunities now because you don't have the energy to do the things that you should be doing to maybe move ahead. Knock-on effects of knock-on effects, and then there's more knock-on effects, aren't there? So when you're talking about tiny changes, tiny habits, if you notice something that's leading you down, angling down, I did a video a while ago about angling up. Well, if you're angling down, then maybe it's time to stop and think about what are the knock-on effects of this little habit. And what happens if I change that habit, just like the woman decided to stop smoking? Well, once you start changing that habit, then you start getting that discipline again. You start angling up, which is what you want to do. You want to angle up just a little bit, because once you start angling up a little bit and you start getting those effects of being consistent action, you'll get knock-on effects that angle you up a little bit more, that'll angle you up a little bit more, until you're experiencing massive change just through the consistent action of doing those tiny little changes. So that's what you want to do. Think about the knock-on effects of the knock-on effects before you start doing any little changes. And if you notice that you're starting to do some things you don't want to do, figure out what the knock-on effects of that action is, and then you can take it all the way down to the end until you get scared about what's going to happen, and that'll be a motivational for you to make changes to start angling up again.